Welcome to episode 100, Spotlight, Least Functionality, also known as Control CM-7. Least functionality is the art of removal, paring systems down to exactly what they need to perform their purpose and nothing more. Every extra feature, open port, or default service is a door that someone could misuse. CM-7 ensures those doors stay closed unless there is a documented reason to open them. This control is the simplest to describe and often the hardest to maintain because convenience constantly pressures restraint. The fewer moving parts a system has, the fewer ways it can break or be attacked. Security begins with subtraction.
Building on that idea, start by inventorying all services, features, and components across your environment. This inventory forms the map of what is actually running versus what should be running. Include operating system modules, installed applications, background daemons, and scheduled tasks. For example, a server may still run an old print service that no one has used for years. Listing each component clarifies scope and reveals surprises. Automation can help collect this data from endpoints or cloud workloads. Without an accurate inventory, least functionality is just guesswork. Knowing what exists is the first step toward deciding what can safely go.
Next, disable default services and sample applications that vendors ship for convenience. Factory defaults often include web consoles, test pages, or demo accounts intended only for setup. Attackers know these defaults and probe for them constantly. For instance, a content management system might include an open example site that leaks configuration details. Remove or disable them immediately after installation and document the removal in your build procedures. Defaults serve their purpose during installation, but they become liabilities in production. A default left enabled is an invitation, not a convenience. Then, whitelist required ports and protocols so systems communicate only as intended. Instead of blocking some traffic, allow only what is necessary. For example, a web server might need inbound ports 80 and 443, but nothing else. Everything else stays closed by policy and firewall configuration. Whitelisting reverses the mindset from reactive to preventive. It assumes denial until justification appears. Periodic scans should confirm that no new ports have opened unexpectedly. Defining allowed communication channels locks down both the known and the unknown, shrinking exposure without breaking legitimate workflows. Limit exposure of administrative tools to the smallest set of users and networks possible. Administrative interfaces, remote shells, management consoles, and web dashboards should never be open to the public internet. Restrict them to specific management networks, jump hosts, or VPNs. For instance, access to a hypervisor console might require multi-factor authentication through an internal bastion system. Many breaches begin not with clever exploits, but with exposed admin panels left unguarded. Least functionality extends to administration itself. Just because a tool exists does not mean it must always be reachable. Fewer paths to power mean fewer opportunities for misuse. Application allowlisting, where feasible, enforces this principle at the executable level. Rather than trying to block bad code, you allow only approved binaries and scripts to run. Modern endpoint platforms and cloud policies make this practical even in dynamic environments. Allowlisting protects against unknown malware and unauthorized software installation. For example, if only signed business applications can execute on finance workstations, a random download or macro cannot start. Though allowlisting requires maintenance, it provides powerful assurance that systems behave as designed. Trust what is known, prevent what is not. Extend least functionality to plugins, extensions, and macros that expand software capability. These small add-ons often introduce outsized risk because they operate with the privileges of their host applications. Disable unused or untrusted plugins and restrict who can install new ones. For example, only approved browser extensions should run within the corporate network, and macros should be signed and controlled by group policy. Reducing optional code minimizes attack paths and helps users focus on legitimate functions. Each extra feature is a potential exploit, so trimming them is both performance tuning and security hardening combined. Outbound traffic deserves the same scrutiny as inbound. Constrain network egress paths so systems can communicate only with known destinations. Many attacks rely on unrestricted outbound access to transmit stolen data or retrieve malicious payloads. Configuring firewalls or proxies to permit only necessary connections limits damage if compromise occurs. For instance, a database server might communicate solely with application servers, never directly with the Internet. Outbound control converts containment from an aspiration into a guarantee. Systems that cannot reach the world cannot leak its secrets.
Feature sprawl creeps in over time, so schedule periodic reviews to detect it. Departments install temporary tools, developers enable debugging, or vendors introduce new capabilities with updates. Each addition expands the attack surface. Quarterly or semi-annual reviews should compare current configurations to approved baselines, flagging features added without justification. For example, scanning utilities may reveal that an old test API is still active. Removing unnecessary features reclaims performance, clarity, and confidence. Regular pruning keeps environments lean and aligned with policy, proving that least functionality is a continuous process, not a one-time cleanup.
Before enabling any new feature or service, document the business need and approval. A short rationale, what it supports, who requested it, and what risk assessment was performed creates traceability. If later questioned, you can show that the addition was deliberate and reviewed. For example, enabling a new monitoring agent should tie back to a service improvement request, not ad hoc experimentation. Documentation also helps identify candidates for future removal when needs change. Functionality with a purpose stays. Functionality without a paper trail eventually goes. Governance keeps growth intentional, not accidental. Evidence of least functionality appears in service lists, configuration exports, and comparison diffs between approved baselines and live systems. These artifacts show which features exist and how they have changed over time. For instance, a diff might reveal that a deactivated module was re-enabled after a patch. Reviewing such evidence verifies control operation and aids forensic analysis if an incident occurs. Generating evidence should be automatic through scanning tools or configuration management systems. When proof is easy to obtain, it indicates the environment is stable and transparent. Exceptions, as always, must be time-bounded and monitored. Sometimes a temporary feature or open port is necessary to support migration or testing. Document the request, assign an expiration date, and watch activity closely until closure. For example, a temporary FTP service for a vendor file transfer might run for 1 week with extra logging and then shut down automatically. Managed exceptions acknowledge operational reality while preserving the principle of restraint. Unchecked flexibility turns control into illusion. Disciplined exceptions keep it alive. Metrics translate least functionality into measurable outcomes. Track reduction in active services, percentage of systems meeting baseline, and correlation between unused features and incidents. A falling service count and fewer incidents tied to misconfigurations signal improvement. If drift rises, review enforcement cadence. Metrics reveal whether simplification is genuine or cosmetic. Over time, the goal is fewer exceptions, smaller attack surfaces, and faster audits. Numbers confirm that removal brings results, not disruption. In closing, smaller surface means smaller risk. CM-7 reminds us that every capability carries cost, and unused capability carries only risk. By removing unneeded features, locking down exposure, and reviewing regularly, organizations create lean systems that resist attack and recover faster when tested. Least functionality is minimalism with purpose, a design philosophy that favors clarity over clutter and control over chance. When every enabled feature earns its place, security becomes not a patchwork, but a principle proven daily in how little is left to exploit. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.